Base altcoins are set to explode in the coming weeks and months. We've already seen the Solana ecosystem blowing up towards the upside, and Jupiter, Radium, and others made investors huge gains. Following that, we caught the moves on Sui, seeing massive gains in the likes of Scallop, Navi, and recently 5x in Cetus. If you missed out on those gains, then don't worry. We're going to go over the 6 best opportunities on the base chain right now, so hit the like button. Let's get into today's video. Now guys, if you've been subscribed to my channel for the last few weeks, you would have realized that we've identified when layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains start to pick up huge volume and TVL growth, that there is a few coins that will always perform really well. We're talking games, we're talking lending platforms, we're talking dexes, and I've identified 6 projects on base chain that I think are going to see the most upside. But before we understand what they are, we need to understand why base chain is pumping so hard right now. Well, it's the native blockchain of Coinbase. And during a bull market, Coinbase will become one of the top 2 exchanges in the world, second only to Binance. Coinbase is also an incredibly user-friendly platform, which means it's very suitable for new people who are coming into crypto to start using. Base is the native chain, has been integrated into the Coinbase exchange. Also, they've created their own smart wallet, and they've created a bunch of developer tools, allowing for developers to come in and build new projects, which is then accessible to people using the Coinbase exchange. This therefore makes it a very suitable chain to develop on, and this is why we're seeing a big influx of capital into that ecosystem. But there's over 100 different decentralized applications built on Base, making it very troublesome for the new investor to identify some killer coins. Therefore, I took the liberty of doing that, and I'm going to take you through them now. Now, Base Chain has the 6th biggest total value locked, which means that there is a lot of capital already in that ecosystem and flooding around into new projects. And what does that mean to us? Well, it means that if we can identify the right projects early enough, then we can see some of that capital flow into our pockets very quickly. Now, in recent weeks on the channel, we've been looking into Sui ecosystem, we've been looking into Aptos, we looked into Solana, we previously in the past have looked into Avalanche, and we've identified that each and every one of these chains, when they start to see significant volume flood in, what sees the biggest gains first? Well, it's a decentralized exchange, because every blockchain out there needs, guess what? A DEX. And that's why Aerodrome Finance is the first coin on the list today. Whilst it does have a slightly bigger market cap and having performed quite strongly recently, Aerodrome still sees significant upside, particularly as it can also float under the real world asset bracket, which I think is destined to be pumped hard by BlackRock throughout this bull market. Now, Aerodrome currently has a $1.3 billion total valuation and is making around $26 million per month in fees. This is another big clue to finding successful projects in crypto. Ones that are actually making money can really be something that you can get behind. Now, just yesterday, they passed over $1 billion in daily volume, and this is only going to be set to continue. Whilst you might see Bitcoin at all-time highs, we are still very early in a crypto market, and many people aren't really even paying attention right now. Once Bitcoin starts to rip towards the upside and we see more and more active users returning to crypto and using Coinbase, we're going to see a huge amount more volume going through dexes like Aerodrome, making Aerodrome a pretty solid bet that I think can see up to a 20x during this bull market. Now, it's worth noting that a lot of these projects on Base have already seen a bit of upside, but you shouldn't necessarily be deterred by that, considering that we are very early on in the bull market and we are betting on the fact that Coinbase will attract a lot more new users, as typically happens in a bull market. Now, before I jump on and tell you about the next projects, I recommend, rather than using Coinbase, that you use Bitunix, which is linked down below in the description. Why? Because it is significantly cheaper than Coinbase. Also, unlike Coinbase and Binance and other big exchanges, they will list a bunch of small cap tokens, because Coinbase, etc., is extremely difficult for projects to get on. So if you want to trade smaller cap cryptos for significantly lower fees with no VPN and no KYC required, then use Bitunix, linked down below in the description. I'll also go across to Bitunix after this video is made and make sure that they've got listed all of these different coins. Now, next up, in addition to having a decentralized exchange, then what else does well? We saw it in Sui with Scallop Lend and its staking and lending platforms. Whenever a chain is doing well, whenever there's lots of money flowing around, guess what people want to do? They want to go and stake and lend on these platforms to be able to increase yields. You might not, but people with billions of dollars are definitely wanting to do that. Therefore, the next up is Moonwell. Moonwell has generated over $800,000 in fees in October, which is a pretty insane level of growth considering that the Base chain hasn't really even been around that long. They're also not only available on Base, but they're also available on other chains like the Ethereum Layer 2, Optimism, and other chains and they will start to add more chains in the future, which obviously adds that interoperability piece, which is obviously a positive as well. Now, what's good to see with Moonwell is we have had recently a bit of a pullback. I wanted to talk about some of these coins the other day, but because of continued upside, I wanted to avoid them until they fell back into a value area. After a decent pullback of around 40%, we've now formed this base, we've broken through this downtrend, and are now looking to see some further continuation towards the upside, making it currently potentially a good time to enter into this. But obviously, guys, I'm not telling you to buy this. I don't hold any Moonwell right now. I do hold some Aerodrome, and I might consider getting into some of the smaller caps that I'm going to talk about after this. But ultimately, what I'm trying to do on this channel is to show you information that's going to make you wiser about the different crypto coins. I'm going to talk about a lot of different coins. The thing I'm focusing on here is the total value locked and the volume in base and that ecosystem, and projects that are actually making money and bringing on active users. This is something key to pay attention to, and you can take this into your investigation into any crypto project out there, and it should serve you quite well. Now, on to the next one, Alien on base. This is a really interesting one. And you'll see, yes, it's had a really aggressive pump, but I wanted to see whether it was sustainable. What we've seen after this nice pump is a nice pullback into this zone, and now we're starting to see buying going on in this area. This makes it particularly interesting for me. But as per usual, don't just pay attention to the charts. Oh no. Now, you know as well as I do, some of these bigger market cap coins like Aerodrome, big dexes, they're already pretty big. They're not going to see us a 50x or more. But we've seen this before in other exchanges where you have one major DEX that's kind of the one that will see the biggest market cap for sure, but then you get like a secondary DEX that comes in. And in the past, over on Avalanche, we caught Trader Joe seeing some good upside, which was the biggest DEX. And instead of buying that one, we bought into Pangolin, and that allowed us and those who were subscribed to the channel all the way back last year to see a 35x in a very short space of time. So sometimes finding the second best DEX on a performing chain isn't a bad bet. Now, this allows you to do things like swap different tokens, to stake, to do things like yield farming, and they also even have a token generator for those people trying to create ERC20 meme coins, if that's your thing. But one of the main drivers behind what's been going on with Alien Base is in fact massive surge in the TVL. Okay, so typically when you see a project surging towards the upside, think to yourself, what's causing that? If it's just happened because Alex Becker's talked about it on his video, or the House of Crypto's talked about it, then it's probably not the right time to get in. In fact, you want to wait and see whether there's anything else out there. Maybe it's the volumes, maybe it's the TVL growth, maybe they just had a key partnership or something like that that's driven that growth. As soon as you understand why and whether that's a sustainable thing into the future, whereas perhaps the shout out on YouTube isn't so sustainable, then you could see whether or not it's worth entering, even if it's already seen significant upside in recent days and weeks. So just to think about this, if Alien on base can grow to as big as Aerodrome, that's a 25x to get to there. But in a full-blown bull market, maybe this becomes the lead DEX of base. And then just imagine how big it might go from there. Now, it's not all just about DeFi. In fact, DeFi is starting to make a bit of a comeback, but there are other narratives that I think are worth paying attention to. And there's one narrative that I think is about to run very, very hot indeed. And that's because of the off-the-grid game that's going to launch on AVAX. But gaming and GameFi tokens exist on other chains. And again, if you look for key narratives and cross them over with key chains that are seeing a lot of upside, then you can start to find some potential winners. And that's why we're going to talk about Carve next with a $129 million market cap. Now, Carve is a modular data and identity layer for AI and gaming. Now, it allows users to share their identities and also keep and own their identities to move across different games across different ecosystems. Also, the information gathered by Carve will feed back into gaming and AI ecosystems to improve gameplay and ultimately keep more gamers on platform, which is obviously a positive thing for different games. The data can then be used to train AIs and AI agents operating within games, therefore increasing the standard of games. Think about like Call of Duty, where you're kind of going out there and fighting against the different bots. But imagine now that those bots can start learning different behaviors to enhance the gameplay. And that's basically what we're talking about with this. Now, again, focusing in on projects that are actually bringing in things like revenue, which is pretty rare across crypto in general, at least it has been in the past. Carve has already got a revenue of around $6 million, which, yes, might seem small compared to the $129 million market cap, but pay close attention to that. If we see significant growth in that, it's an indicator that it's actively being used within that GameFi niche. And if we start to see gaming and Web3 gaming seeing mass adoption, then platforms like Carve could really start to take off as traditional Web2 games transition into Web3 games and start to use services like the ones provided by Carve. Now, Carve also integrates PlayCarve, which is basically a gaming library where users can go in and actively participate in games to be able to earn different rewards and pay to use those different ecosystems. Already compatible on iOS and Android, which is obviously great because it's going to onboard users who are not necessarily people from crypto. And this means that the 900 games that are available through Carve already have around 2.5 million active users. Now, not necessarily all of those using Carve right now, but you can see how this could work in the future should we see that adoption take place. Now, having recently seen one of the most successful launches I've seen, at least in the last 8 months, where most new projects just plummeted towards the downside, you can see Carve launched, has then pulled back into an area about 50% down, recently has been spiking up towards the upside, showing that there has been selling pressure coming in, but around this area down towards around sort of 72 cents looks like a reasonable entry. And this could be considered to be a good kind of gaming coin that kind of gives you exposure to the whole kind of gaming ecosystem. We've already talked about BeamX and Super and basically having exposure to gaming ecosystems rather than just single gaming coins because they are slightly lower risk than going after individual games. But this is just another one to consider. Now, next week on the channel, I will talk about gaming coins in more depth and I will start to look at more different types of gaming coins, which I think offer really good risk to reward ratios. Therefore, if you want to go check out more gaming content, more AI content, you want to learn more about how these projects are actually working and why they actually might be good investments rather than just being told what to buy, then make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have some killer content coming up. And if you've got this far through and you haven't hit that like button yet, get on with it. Now, I was going to talk about this next one last, but actually I think it's more important to talk about it now because weirdly, because it has one of the biggest market caps of coins on Base. Now, what is it? It's a meme coin. And you know how I feel about meme coins if you've been subscribed to the channel. But actually, while I've seen a lot of smaller cap meme coins struggle recently as utility coins are getting running again, there are like the blue chips of meme coins that I do think will see some upside, that I do think are going to see some upside. Now, this one, Brett, which has been heavily pushed by one of the key meme coin influencers, Crash, has seen huge exposure, particularly as the main meme coin or the mascot meme coin for Base Chain. Now, if Base Chain does continue to see more upside, because this is available over on Coinbase, I think a lot of the retail investors who are coming in will be using Coinbase, Binance, OKX, or whatever else, and they're going to be therefore only buying the mainstream meme coins. They've all been hearing about all this exciting meme coin stuff, but they're not going to be offering Dex Screener and Pump.Fun. They're going to be buying the meme coins that they can access without all this trouble. Brett therefore sits in that bracket. Any other meme coins like Turbo, Pepe, not really sure right now, but make sure that they're available on things like Binance and Coinbase if you think that they're going to see significant upside. And yes, if they get listed, they could also see upside, but if they've already been listed, that's something that's also very positive and could be a good bet, okay? Now, having spoken to my meme coin friends, of which I don't have that many, I do hear that Brett is the best friend of Pepe and part of Matt Fury's boys club, as much as that takes you anywhere. Really, the value in Brett comes from the fact that it is the representative of Base Chain. There isn't actually a Base coin, which probably means that a meme coin on Base could do quite well. The benefit of this over perhaps some utility coins is there are no unlocks to come and pretty much it's all in circulating supply, although I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who are shilling it aggressively probably hold the majority of the supply. So be careful and make sure you don't get left holding the bag near the top of the bull market. Now, quickly on to the next two, the smallest market cap coins that we are talking about today, one of which I actually talked about last summer and has had a pretty quiet time since. And that's typical because a lot of smaller cap coins have, but now we're seeing a lot of growth in the Base ecosystem. We're now starting to see Medicade see some excitement as well. Still currently around a $15 million market cap at the time of making this video, but we might see some changes in the coming days as gaming and the Base chain start to heat up. Now, Medicade is a small cap Web3 gaming platform, and they're building a virtual space, kind of like a virtual arcade, hence Medicade, to bring together different gamers and blockchain enthusiasts from around the world. In here, you can do things like building games, there's different things like cash prize giveaways, and they also provide different tools for gamers and developers to come in and develop new projects and applications, which can be used by people within the ecosystem. They've got a new game coming up in the next 6 days called Metacadia, which is basically a social strategy game, and this could see some good growth. Now, I do know that this coin does have a pretty passionate group of followers behind it, and I do think that once it starts to see more promising price action again, this could also be beneficial. Also, the CEO, a guy called Russ, who's actually a really nice dude, I've spoken to him once or twice before, is a member of Alex Becker's Neo Tokyo Club. that means that maybe just down the line, Alex Becker, who is heavily involved in GameFi, could go and give a shout out to Medicade, but who knows whether or not that can happen. And that's probably a little bit of a gamble to place your bets on, but as a gaming ecosystem in a blossoming ecosystem, Medicade probably isn't a bad bet, and who knows, if the market gets really popping, it has a market cap small enough to maybe see 30 to 50x should things go really well. Now, last but not least, Talent Protocol, currently with a $7.2 million market cap, making it the smallest cap of the coins that we've talked about today, and it's a platform for bringing your reputation online, which is kind of an interesting one if you ever thought about social credit scores and things like that. But ultimately, this is basically a talent passport. So if you've ever had to try and hire staff like editors or people to make thumbnails or to build you websites or anything, you will probably realize that it can be quite a challenging task, and sometimes you invest lots of time and hire people and then you think, oh, I wish I hadn't hired them and I could have just hired someone else because maybe they've been using ChatGPT to write their resume. But the good news is now Talent Protocol have devised a way that you can actually have a proof of talent attached to the blockchain, and this means that as someone working in Web3 or Web2 or whatever, you can go and show people your professional credit score. Now, so far, they've integrated over 40 different data sources, and they've now got over 1.4 million passports on chain, making this a pretty big deal. And if everyone out there operating in Web2 and Web3 starts to go and create themselves passports, starts to go and use this as a service, this could be a very interesting project. And I haven't really heard anything like this so far, which makes it something quite unique. And sometimes when you find something a bit unique within the crypto ecosystem, it can really pay off. So like any smaller cap coin, it is a speculative play, but worth having a look into and doing some deeper research for yourselves. I just wanted to come and bring to your attention some of the things that I'm noticing on Base right now. As the bull market moves on, as I start to look more into GameFi projects, we'll dive deeper into like the Medicade and Carve. I'll also look into real world assets and other kind of utility platforms. So a lot of these coins I've talked about today, I will come back to, and I will continue to kind of flesh out and bring your attention towards more coins. I highly recommend that you don't go and buy every single coin that I talk about, because then you'll own 100 odd coins. But all of these coins I've been looking at in depth, I recommend that you go and do your own research on them. These are good examples of some good quality projects. You don't have to get into them. You can then go and get into other ones, but hopefully this is overall going to up your knowledge a little bit from when you started watching this video. Also, while I've got your attention, make sure to go over and give me a follow on Twitter called House of Crypto 3. I'll leave a link down below in the description, because I often update a lot of different coins that I've been looking at before I go and put them on YouTube. Therefore, make sure you're following on Twitter if you want to stay as up to date as possible with what's going on in the ecosystem, because I don't always have time to make videos on YouTube, and Twitter will always see that information first. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye-bye.